Hi, it's me Dr. Prasad Pudilam. Continuing my classes for second PU, that is 10 plus 2 or plus 2 chemistry. This is unit number 2, solutions, and it's class number 1. Here, I'll be explaining about type of solutions, mainly binary, then expressing the concentration of solution, concentration of solute in solvent mainly. Then we'll be seeing the solubility property and a statement of Henry's and its application. Type of solutions. Solutions, here we'll mainly discuss about homogeneous mixtures. We know there are two types of mixtures, homogeneous as well as heterogeneous. So here we'll be discussing mainly about homogeneous mixtures. So a homogeneous mixture means in which the compositions and the properties are uniform throughout the mixture. And the main component in general cases, in case of solution, that is solvent. And the solvent itself decides the physical state in which the solution exists. Okay, solvent, it may not be always we consider solvent as liquid case. The solvent may be solid, the solvent may be liquid, or it can be gas also. So the other component other than solvent, which we call as solute. Say we'll take examples for the different categories of solutions, different types of solutions, and we'll see which are the solute, solvent, and we'll take one example each. The first case, that is gaseous solutions. Gaseous solutions are of three types. The first one, that is gas as solute, and another gas as the solvent. Say example, mixture of helium in oxygen gas. So both are gaseous state. Second type, that is gaseous solution only, liquid as solute and gas as solvent. Say example, chloroform in liquid state, it is mixed with nitrogen gas. Third one, that is solid in gas. Say camphor in nitrogen gas is an example for solid material as solute and it gas as the solvent and forms a solution. The second type, that is liquid solutions. Liquid solutions are of also of three types, in which gas is solute and liquid is solvent. So liquid solution means the solvent will be always liquid, solute will vary. Okay, so first case we see in gaseous solutions, the solvent is gas itself, solute varies from gas to liquid to solid. Likewise, liquid solutions, first example, first case, that is gas in liquid, say carbon dioxide gas dissolved in water. Liquid to liquid, that is ethanol, a liquid state, dissolved in water. Water also in liquid state. Third one, solid in liquid case. General category, general examples we see many, salt in water or glucose dissolved in water. The third type, that is solid solutions, in which the solvent is solid, solute may vary. Okay, so first case, gas as solute and solvent is solid. Say example, hydrogen gas present with palladium. Okay, so this type of examples we see in batteries, mean palladium batteries, in which hydrogen is adsorbed on palladium. Liquid in solid case, say amalgam of mercury with sodium is an example for liquid in solid. And the last one, that is solid in solid mixture, that is a mixture of or alloys like a copper present with gold is an example for solid solution. So these are the different types of solutions which we specified what is solute, what is solvent, and one example each is given for all the different types. Now here we can see the solute particle mixes with the solvent, then we are getting the solution. Say an example is taken here. Okay, this is not a complicated example, how to make a tea. Okay, so most of nowadays everyone knows how to make tea. Okay, so here we see this example is taken just to because this is a more convenient, everyone knows about it. Therefore, we see which is the solvent. Here water is the solvent and the solute particle. So other than solvent, the other components are taken as the or considered as solute. Okay, therefore sugar, tea leaves or the essence of tea leaves, spices, as well as milk can be treated as solute, and we'll get a good quality tea if you mix them in a proper manner. But it varies. The sugar content will varies. Tea powder, how much tea powder we take, that also varies. Some people won't add spices. Some people even they don't add milk. Tea without milk they prepare. Therefore, these are just quality. It does not determine the quantity. Okay, the quality is good. Okay, so we say that we measure in terms of quality. We are not specifying how much exact sugar we have to take, exact how much tea leaves we have to take. That is not specified here. Okay, they are qualitative measurements. Quantitative measurement, or to say in its quantity, that is its concentration. Okay, so the amount of solute, amount of solvent, how much if you specify, then we can say we are specified or we are described its concentration. So in quantitative measurement, there are many methods used like mass percentage, volume percentage, mass by volume percentage, parts per million, mole fraction, molarity, and molality. So are very easy concepts, very easy to understand. But these concepts are required when a chemist or when we handle chemicals in laboratory or in industries. There we cannot do it qualitatively. We have to specify how much concentration is there. Mainly in research purpose, we have to specify each and every temperature, pressure, concentration, everything we have to specify. Then only we can repeat it. Repeatability will be there. Okay, so we'll see one by one. Mass percentage. Mass percentage means how much mass per how much mass. That is W, weight. In terms of weight, W per weight. Okay, so let us take an example. Say weighing 10 grams of glucose, not the pan in which the glucose is taken, that is teared off. The total glucose is 10 gram. Likewise, water, it is not 90 ml, it is 90 gram. It is weighed, and the reading when it comes to 90 gram, we keep on adding water. We tear off the weight of the beaker, and only water its weight is measured. We have to take 90 gram of water. If you mix glucose and water, we'll be getting glucose solution. Okay, that will total weight of that will be 100 gram. 10 gram of glucose plus 90 gram of water, we will be getting 100 gram of solution. Now mass percentage, now it is very easy to understand. Mass percentage, that is mass of the component in solution upon total mass of solution multiplied by 100. So here mass percentage of glucose is 10. This type of calculations are used in industry, commercial purpose. Say commercial bleaching solution, it contains 3.62 mass percentage of sodium hypochlorite in water. That means if you calculate, if you measure the total, if you can consider as total 100, in which 3.62 parts is sodium hypochlorite. The remaining out of 100, remaining 3.62 out of 100, if you reduce 3.62 from 100, that much water we have to weigh. Okay, so 3.62 is the mass percentage of a commercial bleaching solution. Okay, this is the way how to represent the concentration in mass percentage. Next case, that is volume percentage. Volume percentage, say it is in volume, therefore we will take in milliliter. Say 35 ml of ethylene glycol is taken, then 65 milliliter of water is taken, not the weight. So we have to measure by using a measuring a jar or a pipette, burette or something like that. You have to properly exactly measure the volume as 35 ml of ethylene glycol, then mixed with 65 ml of water, we will be getting 100 ml solution. Total volume will be 100 ml. That is the solution of ethylene glycol in water. Okay, therefore the volume percentage of ethylene glycol can be calculated as volume of the component. So here component is ethylene glycol upon total volume of solution. Okay, ethylene glycol, water, this mixture is the solution multiplied by 100. That will be its percentage volume. volume percentage. Okay, therefore 35 percentage V by V, that means 35 ml of ethylene glycol and 65 ml of water is taken. This particular mixture, that is 35% of ethylene glycol, it is having applications in our car as a cooling, okay, anti-freezing agent for cooling purpose. Okay, so this antifreeze, even that car that anti-cooling in that cabin, even some people even they add water also. Okay, if you add antifreeze itself, so that is 35% of ethylene glycol, the engine will cool immediately, or the cooling effect will be better than that of water, because it can reduce the, or it can lower the freezing point of water to negative 17.6 degrees Celsius. Okay, that we call as the antifreeze. It acts as an antifreeze. Okay, this is about a volume percentage and its calculation. Next one, that is mass by volume percentage. Say this is very easy concept. Mass of solute in 100 ml of solution. Say if I take 1 gram of solute and 100 ml of solution, if it dissolve, then it is 1 mass percentage. The mass percentage is 1. So you have to weigh the solute, you have to measure the solution, or you have to measure the solvent in terms of milliliter, or say 100 milliliter. Then the mass percentage or mass by volume percentage can be calculated very easily. So this type of concentration presentation is mainly used in medicine as well as pharmacy industry. They usually take the medicine or the medicine contents, they calculate in terms of they weigh in grams and take it in milliliter of the solvent, and they calculate, they express in terms of mass by volume. That is easy for medicine as well as pharmacy industry. The next concept, that is parts per million. Mainly the impurities we present in terms of parts per million. Okay, so it is can be defined in terms of milligram parts of solute present in million parts of solvent. So it is ppm. I will reverse it, milligram parts per million. Okay, so milligram parts of solute, that means we have to weigh the solute in milligram. Then we have to take we have to consider million parts, that is 1000 milliliter. 1000 milliliter means that is 1 liter of solvent. So how much milligram of solute present in 1000 ml of that solvent which is taken. Okay, it can also be calculated as, parts per million can be calculated as number of parts of the component upon total number of parts of all components of the solution multiplied by 10 to the power 6. Okay, it looks complicated. We'll simplify it. We'll take the example. For example, if you take a liter of water, and that 1 liter of water, if you weigh, if you measure the weight, it is found to be 1030 grams. Okay, and it contains 6 into 10 to the power minus 3, that is 0.006 grams of dissolved oxygen. Okay, so this is the example given. A liter of water having 1030 grams contains 0.006 grams of dissolved oxygen. Then what is the parts per million of oxygen? So parts per million of parts per ppm of oxygen can be calculated as number of parts of the component. So here the component is oxygen, which is dissolved in water. Okay, therefore the number of parts, it is given as 6 into 10 to the power minus 3 gram. Okay, so 6 into 10 to the power minus 3 upon 1030. We will be getting multiplied by 10 to the power 6, that is as per the equation given. If you calculate, that is 5.8. Or we can say in this particular example, the oxygen content is 5.8 ppm. So 5.8 parts per million is present in the taken liter of seawater. Okay, this type of parts per million, this way of representing the concentration is mainly used to represent the pollutants. Okay, the impurities present in water or impurities present in atmosphere, we treat them as pollutants. So these pollutants we express in terms of microgram per ml or microgram per milliliter or parts per million. Okay, so parts per million can be the unit can be represented as microgram per ml. So that is milligram parts per milligram parts per liter or microgram per milliliter. Mole fraction, that is represented by small letter x. Mole fractions, that is something related to number of moles or moles. We already seen in previous classes how to calculate number of moles. If you know the mass, if you calculate the mass, and if you know the particular component or particular molecule or atom or whatever we taken, if you know its atomic mass or molar mass, the total mass upon molar mass gives the number of moles. Likewise, if you know the volume, if you know the molar volume, volume upon molar volume, that is number of moles. Or if you have particles, number of particles, then we have to make use of Avogadro number, that is 6.022 multiplied by 10 to the power 23. Therefore, number of moles can be calculated easily. Okay, since mole is came, but that word mole came, that's why I took that example. So mole fraction of a component can be calculated as number of moles of the component upon total number of moles of all components present in that. Okay, so example, in a binary mixture means two mixtures, that is one act as solute, the other will act as solvent, that is binary, only two is present, therefore we call it as binary mixture. Say two mixtures, a mixture of two components A and B. Okay, either A act as a solvent or solute, B act as solvent or solute. Okay, so this is just a general example in which the number of moles of A is Na, number of moles of B is Nb. Then number of the mole fraction can be calculated as number of moles of the component. Say here example A, number of mole fraction of A we are calculating. So XA is equal to number of moles of A, that is Na, divided by or upon total number of moles of all components. Here all components means only two components are there. Therefore Na plus Nb. Therefore it is clear now, mole fraction of a compound or component is equal to number of moles of component upon total number of moles of all components. Okay, so this is very useful. This mole fraction way of expressing the concentration is useful in calculating some physical properties of solution, as well as to describe the mixtures mainly involving gases. We mainly use the term mole fraction. Next one, that is molarity. Molarity, that is number of moles of solute upon volume of solution in liter. Not so complicated. Again, number of moles came. That's why I took this presentation picture here to here. How we can calculate number of moles of solute. Okay, so example, 5 gram of sodium hydroxide. It is dissolved in 450 milliliter of water. Okay, so here by this equation, the volume of solution should be in liter, but this particular example, it is given in milliliter. We can convert milliliter to liter very easily. So 5 gram of sodium hydroxide, it is dissolved in 450 ml of water. Then what is the molarity of sodium hydroxide? Okay, so first we have to calculate the number of moles of solute. Solute here is sodium hydroxide. Number of moles is calculated as mass by molar mass. Molar mass of sodium hydroxide is 40. Sodium and oxygen and hydrogen combined mass, that is 40. Okay, so 5 upon 40, that is 0.125 mole. Number of moles we got. Now total volume of solution in liter, it is given in milliliter. 450 milliliter is equal to 0.450 liter. Okay, so now we can calculate the molarity as 0.125 upon 0.450, that is 0.278. That is the molarity of sodium hydroxide. Okay, so molarity is number of moles of solute upon volume of solution in liter. The last one, that is molality. It is almost similar to that of molarity, only the difference is that in molarity the denominator was liter of solvent. Here it is mass of solvent in kilogram. Here we have to weigh it. So we have to calculate the mass. We have to measure the mass. Okay, so say example, 74.5 gram of potassium chloride. If it is dissolved in 1 kilogram of water, so here what I say, you have to measure the mass. You have to take the weight. Okay, so 1 kilo, it is, you have to take it in balance and you have to weigh the water. So here 1 kilogram of water is taken. So if 74.5 gram of potassium chloride, if you dissolve in 1 kilogram of water, say that it is having 1 mole. the molarity is 1 mole per kilogram. How it comes? How it becomes 1 molarity? The molarity, how it becomes 1? That we'll see. Okay, so 1 moles of potassium chloride solute per 1 kilogram of water, that is solvent. That is the meaning of 1 molarity. Okay, molarity means number of moles of solute per mass of solvent in kilogram. So here we say that it is 1 mole means number of moles of solute will be 1 mole. 1 mole of potassium chloride. So moles can be calculated as mass per molar mass, and molar mass of potassium chloride is 74.5 gram. That we can calculate with the atomic mass of potassium and that of chlorine. Combined we'll get a 74.5. So 1 mole of KCl, if you want to get, means if you want to get the value 1, it should be 74.5 divided by 74.5. Okay, that means 74.5 gram of KCl is dissolved in 1 kilogram of water to get molality as 1. So now it is clear how 74.5 gram potassium chloride, if dissolves in 1 kilogram of water, how it becomes 1 molarity. Molarity equal to 1, how it becomes. Okay, so molarity can be calculated as number of moles of solute upon mass of solvent in kilogram. Okay, so these are the different ways of representing the concentration of the solution for solute, and how much solute and how much solvent is present. This is the quantitative way of representing the solution. So here, whatever the calculation which consists of mass or weight, we know they are independent of temperature, the parts per million, mole fraction, molality, or mass percentage. They are independent of temperature. We don't want to worry much about the temperature, variation of temperature. Whereas when we calculate that of molarity, we should even specify the temperature because it is dependent on temperature. Next topic, that is solubility. Solubility of solute in solvent. Okay, usually solute dissolves in solvent, therefore solubility means that is by default it is that of solute. So solubility of a substance or solubility of a solute is its maximum amount that can be dissolved in a specified amount of solvent. Say it depends upon the nature of solute. Solubility depends upon nature of solvent. Solubility depends upon the temperature, as well as solubility depends upon pressure. We'll see one by one. Say example, say I took a container, a vessel. Okay, represented the vessel taken, a solvent is taken, that solvent molecules are represented as a sphere here. Okay, so this is just to representing the solvent molecules. To that, we need to add the solute to determine the solubility, or to say what type of solution we'll get. So this represents the solute molecule. The red colored particles here represent solute particles. Okay, they will not appear as particle as such in solution, say they dissolve. These solvent molecules are not visible to our naked eye. Even the solute molecule, when it dissolves, undergo dissolution. That when it dissolves, we call it as dissolution. When it undergo dissolution, it cannot see with our naked eye. Okay, so just to represent like this. Okay, so keep on adding the solute, the dissolution takes place. That means it will interact with the solvent molecule. Interact in the sense these solute molecules forms intermolecular forces or intermolecular bondage with the solvent molecule. Then only they can dissolve. That means like dissolves like. Means the solvent molecules likes the solute. Okay, that's why they form some attractive forces, which we call as intermolecular attractive forces between two molecules, that is intermolecular. So because of the intermolecular forces, the solute particle will dissolve in solvent. Okay, here for one solvent molecule, I took 3 solute. Okay, it varies. Okay, this is just for representing case only. I took this type of representation. Okay, so we reached to a point here. Here, one more solute particle can be added to this solution. Okay, so till this state, which is represented here, we can say that this solution is unsaturated. This is not saturated. Okay, or we can say that till this present case, which is displayed in the screen, this is we can represent as a unsaturated solution. Say example, if I add one more solute particle to that, now it becomes saturated. Now this is a saturated case. Upon adding another solute particle, say another solute particle is added here, that will not undergo dissolution. Okay, it cannot interact with the solvent molecule because already they formed the maximum possible interaction is done. Okay, therefore the extra addition of solute particle, it will crystallize out or it will precipitate. Okay, it will collide with the solute particle and it will separate, or we call it as crystallization, or in a simple way we call it as precipitated. Okay, the more used word is precipitated. Okay, or we can say it is crystallized. That is more scientific method of expressing that one. It is crystallized out. Okay, so those particles are crystallized out. If I remove that one, then this is the case which we call as the saturated solution or saturated case. So a saturated solution in which the solvent and solute, they combine to form solution, or even we can say that the solution is exactly equal to solute plus solvent, or we can specify how much exact solute is there, how much exact solvent is there. Therefore they exist in dynamic equilibrium. Okay, so this can be converted from to the right hand side, or this equilibrium can be shifted to the left hand side by applying external force. Okay, by applying external force we can convert. This is in dynamic equilibrium, which can be that we see that Le-Chatelier principle. Okay, so here, okay, so such type of solutions in which no more solute can be dissolved. Okay, so we saw the cases in which if additional solute that will crystallize us out or it will precipitate. Okay, so as condition or such a solution in which no more solute can be dissolved at the same temperature and pressure is called a saturated solution. So it is specified here, same temperature and pressure. That means if you vary the temperature and pressure, it may affect this equilibrium, dynamic equilibrium. Okay, so the concentration of solute, how much solute is present at this dynamic equilibrium case is known as its solubility. So that much concentrated of solute is its solubility. That is a way to represent the solubility of a solute. How much is the concentration of solute present in a particular solvent, specified solvent, to get a solution in a saturated case or when it is in dynamic equilibrium. So this dynamic equilibrium will see the effect of temperature as well as pressure. Okay, so temperature in general cases we say as temperature increases the dissolution will increase. That is general case only. It varies to some from some examples. It will vary. It will not be as temperature increases the dissolution may not be proper. Okay, or we may not get a proper solution. General case we see we heat the solution to dissolve. General applications when we see in day-to-day life, normal cases, if the solution is not clear or if we didn't get the proper solution, we will be heating it. Okay, that means on heating or increasing temperature, the solubility increases. Okay, so we have to see in terms of Le-Chatelier principle. So this dynamic equilibrium, whatever discussed here, if we disturb it by some external force like temperature or pressure, the position of equilibrium moves to counteract the change. Okay, so to counteract whatever the effect happened to that equilibrium, there will be some change. It will be shifting to the right side or it will shift to the left side. That means on increasing temperature, the solute may undergo dissolution to get solution, or in some cases on increasing temperature the solution will precipitate the solute. So both possibilities are there. Okay, so in general cases, the near saturated case, that or if it is in dynamic equilibrium or near to that cases, the dissolution process is endothermic. If the dissolution process is endothermic, that means if we add solute to solvent, say example, the salt is added to water, and if you are holding that vessel, say beaker containing water, we are adding salt, that is sodium chloride, we may feel a cooling effect. So that cooling effect is because the reaction or the dissolution there is endothermic, means it takes heat or it takes the temperature. It is endothermic. It is not liberating heat. It is absorbing heat. It is absorbing heat of that of our skin or from our hand. Okay, that's why we feel cooling effect. Okay, then we call it as endothermic. Okay, so whatever temperature related things we have to represent in terms of enthalpy. So H represents enthalpy. Therefore, endothermic reaction means the dissolution. Okay, delta solution is of H is greater than that of 0. Okay, enthalpy of dissolution is greater than that of 0. That is we call it as endothermic. That means it takes heat from external source or it takes heat from externally. Then we can say that such type of cases where if it is the process is endothermic, the dissolution case is endothermic, the solubility should increase with rising temperature. That means if you heat the solution or if you heat the mixture, the solute particle should dissolve more, or even if it is reached equilibrium also, almost reached equilibrium also, more solute can be added to the solvent. Whereas if it is exothermic dissolution means how the solute is undergoing, how it is dissolved in solvent, we call that state as dissolution. Okay, if the dissolution is exothermic, that is delta solution H is less than 0. Okay, here should be less than 0. Okay, so there is a mistake happened here. The solubility should decrease. If the dissolution process is exothermic, then as increasing the temperature, dissolution will be decreasing or it will precipitate out. The solute particle will precipitate. Okay, so this is the effect of temperature on solubility. Now the effect of pressure on solubility. There is not much effect of pressure on solubility of a mixture containing solid and liquid. If solid is the solute and liquid is the solvent, then there is not much effect of pressure because both solid and liquid cannot be compressed. Okay, gas molecules can be compressed, whereas at a normal pressure we cannot compress solid and liquid. That is normal cases we see, not applying high pressure and high pressure. Okay, so in general cases we can say there is not much effect on the dissolution process of pressure, dissolution process, the pressure on dissolution of solid solute on liquid solvent. Now we'll see the solubility of a gas in liquid, that type of example. First we take the pressure. So here solute is gas, solvent is liquid, undergoes dissolution, dynamic equilibrium is reached. Okay, it can be explained with that of Henry's law. To explain that Henry's law, okay, I took the example, I took the solvent as liquid. A liquid is taken in a beaker. Okay, to that the gaseous molecules are added or gaseous molecules are getting dissolved. So this is the case when it is dissolved. This is the case we reached a dynamic equilibrium. Okay, so here the black bars represents gas molecule, and this blue whatever present here, that is the liquid state. Okay, so actually when the gas molecule reaches the liquid state, when it undergoes dissolution, the color must change. There should not be any color. Okay, so here color is given so that we can identify the particles, gas particles mainly. Okay, so here gas particles are represented. A liquid state it is present as such. Okay, so this is the case where no more gas molecules are moving to the liquid or moving to the liquid state, or it is not undergoing dissolution in normal case. So many gas molecules are dissolved. Few gas molecules are undissolved. They are present at the surface of that. Okay, so here you can see the gas molecules can move freely, whereas in dissolved case they cannot move. They have limited mobility. Mobility means ability to move. Okay, so on increasing the pressure, we are seeing the effect of pressure. On increasing the pressure, how to increase the pressure of gas? We need some closed, we have to make it as closed container. Therefore, a piston is taken. So this represents a piston. So a piston is taken here and applying pressure on that. Okay, how to apply pressure? We have to keep some weight on that, or we have to push it with our hand. Okay, so we should have a measurement of that. Say I say that pressure is applied, a weight which is measured as 1. it may be kilogram, gram, whatever it may be. So just a rational number 1 is taken, it is applied or kept over that piston. So the piston will move downwards, the gas molecule will move, and few gas molecule will even penetrate, or it goes to the liquid state, or it undergoes dissolution. We will see again once again the right side corner, that gas molecule, it goes to the or it undergoes dissolution. Okay, so only represented one here. Here also one gas molecule is moving here. Okay, that is generally, if you do the practically the experiment also, we can see this type of this type of explanation can be given, and actual practice also. Here I just giving the representation. Say now two weights. Okay, 1 plus 1 2. That means two gas molecules I will consider. So two weight, that is pressure is increased, and two gas molecules undergone dissolution. Therefore, we can say that in general. So this is the experiment done by Henry, not like this experiment, actual experiment. Its schematic representation is given here. As he improved the pressure, he found that the number of gas molecule undergoing dissolution is also increasing, and they are proportional. It is proportional to the pressure applied here to the dissolution. Okay, therefore Henry's law can be stated in a simple way that at a constant temperature, the solubility of gas in liquid is directly proportional to the pressure of the gas. Okay, if you increase the pressure, the dissolution, the solubility will increase. If you decrease the pressure, the solubility will decrease, or the gas molecule will come out from the solution. Okay, the same time, even Dalton also did some experiments based on a gaseous molecule. Okay, the Henry and Dalton, they did the work in the same time era. So they lived in the same time era. Okay, so Dalton experiments also, we can take some points to support the Henry's law, or to explain the effect of pressure on solubility. So Dalton's experiments, you can say that you can take the point that the mole fraction of gas in solution is proportional to the partial pressure of gas over the solution. What is mole fraction? That you already seen, that is the way to express the one of the way to express the concentration of solute. Mole fraction of component, that is number of moles, that is mass per molar mass, or volume per molar volume, like that. It is number of moles of component upon total number of moles of all components. And what is partial pressure? In detail we'll see in coming classes, but to understand here partial pressure, I took this example. So here I took an example of a gas mixture of A, B and C. A, B and C are three different gases. It's mixed together. Therefore, the pressure exerted by this mixture A, B, C will be equal to the pressure of the individual gases present. We know the gaseous state, the molecules or the particles are free to move, and that free movement exerts the pressure. Okay, so the total pressure exerted here will be equal to the pressure exerted by the particles of A, as well as pressure exerted by the gas particles of B, as well as the pressure exerted by the gas particles of C. These three different particles will have different type of pressure, or different pressure will be generated, or it will create different pressures. Therefore, we can say that the total pressure is the partial pressure of A, B as well as C. So that is what we mean by partial pressure. Okay, so partial pressure of the gas. Okay, so the gas molecules are the solute. Its partial pressure, it is proportional to the mole fraction of the gas in the solution. So whatever present in the solution means the mole fraction of gas in the solution means some of the gas is dissolved in solvent, that is liquid. Its mole fraction, that means dissolved, how much gas is dissolved, that is the same word meaning, it comes mole fraction. How much gas molecule is dissolved, or the dissolution is directly proportional to the pressure, or the partial pressure, in terms, if you take in terms of the experiments done by Dalton's. Therefore, we can further modify the Henry's law, or Henry's laws are modified. We are not commonly using that same term what we use, the same statement, that is dissolution is directly proportional to pressure. That is not used as such, but that is general case, that is easy to understand. But for practical applications, for some calculating some of the properties, Henry is most commonly used law, that is the partial pressure of gas in vapor phase, which is represented by a small letter p in italics. It is proportional to the mole fraction of the gas. Mole fraction of gas is represented as X in the solution. Okay, so mole fraction of gas in the solution means number of moles of gas dissolved in the total number of moles of the solute that we seen already previous slide. So the partial pressure for the pressure is directly proportional to the dissolution. That is the same meaning comes here. So we'll represent or we calculate or we take an example that we'll take a graphical representation. The partial pressures are calculated, mole fractions also calculated, and we are plotting a graph. We have taken a partial pressure in y-axis, mole fraction in x-axis. Okay, so partial pressure is represented or calculated in terms of torr. Mole fraction, there is no unit as such. There is number of moles per total number of moles. Okay, so example of HCl in hexane, that is what I took here. So this, as the mole fraction is increased, or how as the number of moles of the HCl dissolving in a given liquid is increasing, the partial pressure on that of that generated at the surface also increased. Okay, so this says, or we can say that it is the, if you connect these points, it passes through the origin. Okay, therefore we can say y is equal to mx, that stage it is. Therefore we can say that partial pressure is directly proportional to mole fraction. Now this proportionality we can convert into equality by multiplying by a constant value. Okay, therefore partial pressure is equal to Kh into mole fraction or multiplied by mole fraction. Here this Kh, this constant value, we call it as Henry's constant. Okay, now higher the Kh value, as Kh value increases, or this value it is constant for a particular gas. Okay, so if you know the Kh value, you don't know which gas it is. Okay, if we only know the value is given, we know the value, we don't know the gas it is. Generally we can say that if the value of that given if the given value of Kh is higher, that means lower will be its solubility property. That means if Kh is higher, pressure of the gas in vapor phase will be higher, then the solubility will be less. Okay, so now we'll see the effect of temperature as well as gas together, or we'll connect these points together. Earlier case we seen the effect of pressure on solubility. Now we see the effect of temperature on solubility of gas in liquid case. Okay, in case of solid and liquid, we seen in the general cases endothermic or exothermic, we seen the the dissolution property also we seen. So here solubility of gases in liquid decreases with the rise in temperature. The general statement what I can say. So as on increasing the temperature, the gas molecule will escape. Okay, therefore the solubility of gas is decreasing. Okay, if higher the Kh value in a given pressure, lower is the solubility. That be what we seen from Henry's law. Okay, so these 2 points we can connect with some examples. Gas molecules are taken and we specify the temperature, and it's a Kh value, Henry's constant in kilobar also calculated or measured. In case of helium, at a temperature of 293 Kelvin, 293 Kelvin means 20 degrees Celsius, that is 1 degree Celsius is 273 Kelvin. Therefore, at 293 Kelvin, helium gas has got a Kh value of 144.94. For that of hydrogen, it is 69.16, and for nitrogen, it is 76.48, and for oxygen, it is 34.86. Okay, so here temperature is constant, whereas and the gas molecules are also different, Kh values also different. Therefore, from this we can see at a given temperature, if you know that the Kh value of the given gas is 144, another gas it is 34, then we can say that this one is Kh value lower value, that particular gas will have higher solubility property. Okay, so higher the KH value, lower the solubility, or lower the KH value, higher the solubility. So these are the examples. Now we'll see some other examples. Nitrogen as well as oxygen case we'll see. We'll check. So nitrogen gas at two different temperatures, 293 Kelvin as well as 303 Kelvin. The KH value is found to be 76.48 and 88.84. That means as temperature is increased, okay, so rise in temperature is increased. What about the KH value? KH value increased. As KH value is increased, for higher the KH value, solubility will be less. For liquid, solubility decreases. Now we got the connection between the temperature and KH value, or we can say this is not a general statement, or we can say in case of gas in liquid, almost all cases, almost all the examples, almost all the cases, the temperature as it increases, the solubility will decrease. Okay, another example, that is oxygen. 293 Kelvin, it is 34.86. At higher temperature, its KH value is 46.82. Therefore, now it is clear that the temperature and KH values are related. Okay, so some practical examples. Okay, we seen the fishes are migrating, or they are moving away from a particular point. Okay, fishes will migrate for some food purpose, and so there are many reasons why fishes are migrating in ocean. One of the reason may be the hot water. If the water suffers or the water is hot, that means the dissolved oxygen will be less. As the temperature increases, the dissolution property of oxygen will decrease. That means oxygen content will be less. Therefore, the fishes will migrate to colder regions, okay, where oxygen content will be more. Okay, that is practical applications of Henry. We see 2-3 examples also. So Henry's law is practical application. To increase the solubility of carbon dioxide in soft drinks and in soda water, the bottle is sealed under high pressure. Okay, so soda water, we seen soda water in bottle. If you open the lid, we feel the pressure release. That means that is kept at a high pressure, because only at high pressure more carbon dioxide will stay in dissolved state. If it is kept at a low pressure, the carbon dioxide will come out of the water molecule, come out of the solvent, and it will not dissolve as such. Therefore, it is stored at a high pressure. Another example that is with scuba dive persons. Scuba dive persons, they are the person who dive to the depth of the ocean. Okay, so such cases, we see that at a surface of the ocean or surface of a water body, the pressure is on atmospheric pressure, normal atmospheric pressure. If a person dives to a 10-meter depth, then the pressure will increase up to 2 atmosphere. That means the pressure is increased. If pressure is increased, we seen the example of that simple example with I tip that vessel and applying the pressure. That example we see, as we apply pressure, as more pressure is applied, more gas molecule will dissolve. Okay, so scuba diver having a particular clothing, and therefore no more gases can enter from the liquid, but whatever gas present in his body or in his lungs or from the gas tank that he is carrying, that gas only we have to consider as a major example. So as he dives to the depth of the ocean, the nitrogen present in that gas, so whatever nitrogen present in our body, so we have nitrogen, it is present in when we inhale the air, and nitrogen also will come with the air. So whatever nitrogen present, that will try to dissolve more in our bloodstream. Okay, because the pressure is increased, now the nitrogen can dissolve easily in our bloodstream. Okay, oxygen also will dissolve, as well as even the nitrogen also will dissolve. And if the person from the depth, even from the 10-meter depth, if he swims up too quickly, if he comes to the surface very fast or quickly if he comes, then this nitrogen which is dissolved in the blood may not get enough time to come to the normal state, to precipitate or to come out from the dissolved state. It will remain in the blood. Or it becomes bubbles. It won't release as such. It becomes bubbles, which will block the veins of our blood, and it will be very painful. Therefore, scuba divers must cope up with the high concentration of dissolved gases while breathing air at high pressure and underwater. Okay, there will be a formation of bubbles of nitrogen in the blood, which blocks the capillaries and create a medical condition which is known as BENS, BENDS, which are very painful and even dangerous to life. But how to avoid that? To avoid that, the gas cylinder, what we say generally called as the gas cylinder which they carry, it contains a mixture of helium along with the nitrogen. Okay, the oxygen cylinder will not be always contains only oxygen. That case we'll discuss later cases. It will be a mixture of gases with more oxygen content in that or containing oxygen. So here in such cases where a diver goes to a depth in ocean, then the oxygen cylinder will be having more, or the nitrogen is diluted with the helium. 11.7% of helium will be there, 56.2% nitrogen, and 32.1% oxygen also will be there. So that is the practical application. That is people calculated data with that of Henry's law only. Even at high altitudes, people lives at high altitudes, or the climbers, people have the habit of hobby of rock climbing. This is not a simple rock climbing what I am discussing here. Even going to high altitudes, if the high altitudes means pressure is less. If less pressure is there, that means the dissolution capacity of the oxygen will be less. That means whatever oxygen which is dissolving to our bloodstream, it will become less. That means we feel less oxygen in our bloodstream, or we feel a weakness. Therefore, the person going to high altitude, they will feel weakness, or the weakness means oxygen content is less, means even they cannot think clearly. Therefore, before going to high altitude, now only you have to think what are the precautionary measures you have to take. This type of condition in which the oxygen dissolution capacity is less at high altitude, where we may have to use oxygen externally, we have to supply or we have to inhale extra oxygen. That physical condition is known as anoxia. Okay, so there are also people who are having anoxia, or people in which the bloodstream containing less oxygen. The dissolution of oxygen in bloodstream, if it is less, such type of people should not go to high altitude. Okay, so this is my class for second PU, unit 2, class number 1 for second PU at present, that is +2 chemistry. I'm signing out from this presentation. Thank you very much and have a nice day.